Now, President Trump ran on building the border wall back in 2016. He promised to finish the job when he won the presidency for the second time in 2024. And now he's got roughly $47 billion to play with in order to try to do that. Thanks to Congress passing last year the One Big Beautiful Bill, giving the administration a massive pool of border construction funding, $47 billion. That initiative doesn't just include the usual 30-foot fences you see closest to the U.S.-Mexico border. The funding is also for miles and miles of 6-foot barriers in some areas and other security measures and apparatuses. The construction of those barriers started getting underway at one particular portion of federally protected land along the southern border in Texas a few weeks ago. You're looking at some of the images from the site. It's facing resistance from community members, environmental groups, and yes, even Republican lawmakers. Earlier this month, bulldozers started arriving at Big Bend National Park, which gets its name from its long and beautiful turn in the Rio Grande. Then the bulldozers started breaking ground. Here, you can see heavy machinery ripping through brush near the Santa Elena Canyon. That canyon is an iconic site, a physically stunning area with walls towering over the Rio Grande inside Big Bend National Park. This footage from August 15th, it shows bulldozers in another area in the park called Mariscal Mountain, clearing and scraping through pristine desert land, leveling roadways for patrolling cars and vehicle barriers. Again, this is a national park, which has historically been federally protected. Well, federally protected up until the summer when the Trump administration ordered those bulldozers to head on in. In June, DHS waived dozens of environmental and historic preservation laws to speed up construction in Big Bend. Undocumented border crossings are down all across the U.S.-Mexico border. But this area in particular has some of the lowest traffic for undocumented immigrants crossing into the U.S. Border crossings in the Big Bend sector, spanning more than 500 miles of the border, are at historic lows. CBP reported a 74% decline in apprehensions in this area in 2025 compared to 2 years earlier. And apprehensions in the area represent a tiny fraction of total national crossings, around just 1.3%. So, couple this with the fact that this is a revered national park, the backlash is mounting. Lawmakers on both ends of the political spectrum have criticized the administration's bulldozing in Big Bend. Republicans like Texas Senator John Cornyn keeps raising his head up to speak out, who voted for Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, we should note. He wrote to DHS, though, citing concerns from locals, telling DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin, quote, "My constituents believe that the 1,000-foot riverbank cliffs and remote Big Bend terrain offers its own source of deterrence for any legal migrants crossing into the United States." That was John Cornyn. More than 140 businesses and recreation groups signed a letter as well, calling on Texas leaders to stop the project earlier this month. And several local organizations, including the Center for Biological Diversity, filed an emergency injunction last week, asking a judge to halt construction across the Big Bend region while the court weighs in on a lawsuit challenging the waiver of environmental laws. It has all led to a pause for now on construction at Big Bend until the CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott visits the park and conducts what he calls a personal on-the-ground evaluation. But make no mistake, it isn't just Big Bend, and it isn't just Texas. According to the latest data from Customs and Border Protection, the administration plans to build more than 700 miles of brand new or replacement border wall in other border states like Arizona, California, and New Mexico, too. This is damage that cannot be undone. And I think that is a big part of why we're talking about this. Joining me now to discuss, Lakin Jordal, National Public Lands Advocate at the Center for Biological Diversity, and Gabby Delvallier, policy reporter at The Verge. Lakin, I want to start with you. You've been part of this movement pushing back against this effort in Big Bend. We are able to see photos, we're able to see video, but for folks that have not witnessed this in real time and the type of construction that is underway, can you give us a sense of just how big of an area we're talking about and just what type of damage is being done in real time?
Yeah, good morning. The scale of this damage is honestly incomprehensible. We've had staging areas fill up with dozens of massive industrial machinery, Caterpillar D8s, excavators. To see this heavy equipment operating within this great American national park, it's jarring. I used to work at Big Bend, and even if we wanted to do the smallest little project, we had to do so much analysis, compliance, cultural resource surveys, environmental surveys. In this case, the bulldozers have shown up and they are chipping away at pristine desert wilderness in this great American landscape with none of the normal cultural resource or environmental resource protections applying.
I want to get more into the waivers, the environmental waivers. But Gabby, first, I just want to talk also about the wall idea itself and the construction at Big Bend area as part of what CBP is describing as a, quote, smart wall. Can you explain what that means and the technology and the surveillance systems that come with it and the administration's defense of its work?
Yeah, absolutely. So CBP and previously Border Patrol have been building walls in the desert through the border for decades at the point. In addition to like the physical actual barrier, there's a network of drones and sensors and cameras and all of these different things that you can't see if you're a migrant crossing the border, but very likely they can see you. And through this combination of physical barriers and digital surveillance, CBP knows how many people cross. They can track things like what they call gotaways, which are people that they see on the cameras but maybe aren't able to apprehend. And so CBP says that in Big Bend, it's building not an actual physical barrier, but a smart wall. But to build that smart wall, it also has to do, or it says it also has to do, all of this additional construction, the grading of roads. So even the quote unquote smart wall still requires a lot of construction. And it's part of this massive militarization and surveillance of the border that didn't really start with Trump, but began decades ago.
And Lakin, as we're watching that construction unfold for this, quote, smart wall that is clearly requiring still this level of destruction, can you elaborate on the DHS waiving the multiple environmental laws to fast track this project? And what ecologically sensitive land are you most concerned about being destroyed?
Yeah, so in June, DHS issued a waiver for the national park, which is the first time in American history that we've seen these laws cast aside in a great American national park. These are the most important environmental laws in our nation's history. These like environmental laws like the Endangered Species Act, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, laws that protect people and wildlife and archaeological resources like we have so many of in Big Bend. I am so concerned about so many elements of this project within the national park, but I think I'm most concerned about the destruction of the river corridor. The park has about 80 miles of border that is the Rio Grande, that is the river. The river is the physical border there. And that is the most important part of the park for wildlife. It's also so important for recreationists. It's where we go put our canoes in the river to get on river trips. River outfitters need access to this river. And DHS's current plans call for walling off the river with these vehicle barriers, impermeable vehicle barriers that will stop outfitters and stop the public from being able to put their boats in the water. It would permanently change this place. We're glad they're no longer pursuing 30-foot high walls, but this current plan, as DHS has it, it would devastate this national park and change it irreparably forever.
Lakin and Gabby are going to stick with us here. I want to talk about where we see this project going and if the construction is going to begin again right here after this break. Gabby, you also reported on resistance to Trump's wall in Arizona, where activists have set up an encampment to protect a 200-year-old cottonwood tree. You know, I have had the chance to spend some time down in the desert along the border. It's a beautiful part of the country, beautiful region. And could you kind of put into context in the way that I was asking Lakin, the way in which folks down in these communities are pushing back and protesting this sort of action, understanding the impact that it'll have, not just to one or two trees along the way, but also migration patterns, the entire area, knowing that that border wall, once it's up, there's no there's no way to really foresee in the future it coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. So previously, a few years ago, Lakin actually took me to look at the border wall through Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument. This was during the Biden administration. It was a wall that had gone up under the Trump administration, and that wall is still there. It hasn't gone down. And looking at the effects of that wall, we can look at what the effects of border militarization could be like in other parts of the border, especially in the desert in Arizona. So there's already border construction. There's already a border wall and border surveillance in Lock Heel, Arizona. There is border surveillance all along the border. It's what they're trying to do of where these trees are is basically build what they're calling a double wall. So two giant steel and concrete barriers along the border. Beyond the environmental destruction that Lakin discussed, border militarization is deadly. We have the data to prove this going back at this point 4 decades. There was a 1994 policy called Prevention Through Deterrence. The idea is to lock down areas of the border where crossings are high, and in Border Patrol's words, funnel people into more hostile terrain, less suited for crossing and more suited for enforcement. That means that people will cross through areas that are like very dangerous, very dry, far from cities. So when it meant locking down Nogales, it meant locking down, El Paso. And that sent people into the desert where they could maybe get across without being caught, or they might die from dehydration or exposure. And the reason that CBP Wall in Big Bend, where there are no crossings, is that further locking down the border in Arizona will funnel people to the very remote, very dangerous territory of Big Bend. It's also crucial, again, to emphasize that crossings are already down significantly. So this may not affect that many people now, but if crossings go up again in the future, more crossings, more remote terrain means that more people could die.
Lakin, what did it mean to you when you heard Republican leaders, including John Cornyn, for instance, they voted for the Big Beautiful Bill to give this tranche of funding, but then now they're criticizing the project? Is there enough pressure, do you feel like, even bipartisan pressure, that there's a chance that some of this construction could stop, knowing that some of the folks that are in Washington that are approving these deals aren't even familiar, haven't even been to Big Bend, for example, themselves?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they paused construction voluntarily last week, that's historic. This amount of pressure that the movement has generated is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we've got, Republican lawmakers, conservative border sheriffs, old Mexican cowboys, river runners, basically every person in Brewster County is coming together to fight this thing. And it is a gritty resistance that is not going to rest until these contracts are canceled and the bulldozers are sent packing home. Also, we're looking at $7 billion worth of border barrier construction in the Big Bend sector. It's not just the national park. They're also trying to build barriers and roads in the state park and Texas Park Wildlife Management Area called the Black Gap, and across this rural region of Texas where there are virtually no border crossings. So we are not just advocating for the national park. Our lawsuit and our injunction that we filed on Monday seeks to stop construction across the region. Families out there are going to lose their properties. We've got the federal government sending eminent domain threats to landowners who have had these beautiful ranches in their families for generations, and they want to build a wall between the river and these people's homes.
Where do you see your lawsuit going? And I know a lot of folks have been seeing video through their social media feeds pop up from people like you and organizations that are down there in real time. Where do you see your lawsuit going, and what should we visually expect to play out?
Yeah, we remain very hopeful about this lawsuit. We are challenging that waiver authority that they have used to strip away all legal protections from people and wildlife across the Big Bend region. We did file for an emergency injunction. We are eagerly waiting to hear from the judge. Basically, if we win our challenge, this invalidates the waiver. That means that DHS, just like everybody else, has to follow the laws. They have to do the requisite studies, consult with experts, consult with Native American tribes. And if they do all of that, if they actually analyze the alternatives that they would have to analyze to this project, there is no way they could justify building these walls across the entire region.
Thank you. Lakin Jordahl, National Public Lands Advocate for the Center of Biological Diversity. And we appreciate your reporting. Gabby Duvalier, policy reporter for The Verge, bringing us all of this. We appreciate you both. We'll be in touch.